How far those would have?
All right, does that sound better? So I'm Erica Brown. I am the Marketing and Communications Director for Workrede, and I'm going to facilitate this conversation today. And what we're going to be talking about is a macro-micro perspective on the essential workforce in Kentucky and the region, valuing, empowering, and understanding the barriers from flourishing are critical to the success of our economy. And so today, Jonathan and Ben will talk about the role of employer and how Workrede is addressing the challenges on a global scale. If you have not met Jonathan before, he is the founder and CEO of Workrede, and he has pioneered work optimization for about 30 years. He's dedicated his career to connecting the unconnected and enabling the power of communication at every layer in the organization. And if you have not heard from Ben Reno-Weber, he has done a bunch of cool stuff. He has founded a tech company, lived in Bosnia, went to Harvard, run several nonprofits. You can find his bio online.
Just to learn 38 countries, travel to 38 countries.
Done a lot of cool stuff. So a lot of his work has been around understanding the broader ecosystem and trends in which innovations happen. So we're happy to have him here today. So thank you, guys. The other characters in the show I'd love to introduce are the squirrels. So we have a big topic. And we have big personalities with a lot to say about what we're talking about. So we have a 3-minute rule. I'm going to pose some questions, and they'll have the opportunity to respond. The squirrel is if they need more than 3 minutes, they can have one 1-minute ad.
I'll just keep it with me.
Otherwise, I've been given a Nerf gun to shoot them if they go 3 minutes. So I'll put the timer up and we'll get started. Does that
Perfect
sound
for after lunch, right?
Let's do it.
Perfect for after
ready.
lunch.
Okay,
I already need a
so
squirrel.
Did you already cock this?
I did.
Okay.
There you go.
so we'll go ahead. Oh,
Okay.
Wow.
Just checking. I just wanted to be sure this is going to go.
oh
It
my
works.
gosh. Okay, so actually
Time
just
started yet?
She's going to cut the timer.
you know what? I
Okay.
did have a timer, but it requires
I mean
internet.
our 30 minutes.
And here we
got
go.
30 minutes.
Yes. So I'll just do my timer on the phone, and I'll let you know. I'll give you a little hand when you get 10 seconds left, so you know.
Great.
Okay.
Shall I start?
Okay.
Oh, yeah. She's
Yeah,
got
so I'm going to
questions.
ask you your first question, and
Oh.
that goes to Jonathan. What does Workrede do, and why does it matter?
I'll need some more time.
You only get one squirrel.
All right, 3 minutes start now.
Do I need this if I have a microphone?
I think it's for the video.
I think the video is for the mic.
Okay.
I think
You're burning time,
Can
buddy.
everybody hear me? Yeah. Great. Okay. So has anybody, my company is called Workrede. Has anybody heard of Workrede? Okay. Has anybody heard of Ready App? Okay. So I started Ready App 12 years ago here in Louisville. We rebranded in the spring to be Workrede. And I'm just going to share you a little bit of origin story that hopefully is relevant to the group. And I understand there's lots of deep tech here. But I will share that what we endeavored to do in 2011, 2012 is to solve a problem that we felt impacted the majority of the working world that nobody had really thought about yet. And the majority of the working world, to understand, are people that work with their hands or machines or with tools in the field or in service to customers or in care of others, like for their entire job. And when we identified that these people had no connection to their jobs, they didn't use email, they aren't given email still to this day. And so we felt like, heck, we're in Louisville, Kentucky. There's absolutely no commercial or industrial or institutional funding for companies that are growing this company. It's in the middle of the country. We're landlocked. What a great idea. Be fast. Rocket ship. I should have started WhatsApp at the time. I didn't. I started Workrede. But we're super excited to be where we are because what we have done and what we have found is that this workforce has been ignored. Back in 2011, 2012, I was a little early, only about 40% of people who work with their hands, machines, and tools had even bought a mobile device. 40% of people in large industrial companies, people in hospitality, people in healthcare, people in retail, only about 40% owned a smart device. I thought, what a great idea. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be great. But however, what we learned is that at that time also, people were spending who had a smart device in 2011, 2012, spend about 30 minutes a day on their phone. Anybody know how long they spend today? You know how long you spend on do you get a report on your phone? Every week?
At least 5 hours a day.
4 to 6 hours a day.
Good spot.
And now the penetration rate of mobile devices is skyrocketed. But here's what we found after 12 years, is that this isn't a tech problem. This is a behavioral problem. When you build software,
You're at 15 seconds.
when you apply technology, I need just one more minute.
Oh, this is your only squirrel, buddy. You're going to use it right now?
I'm using it right now.
Wow.
When you apply technology to a workforce that's never had it before, it's not the people in the back office that have to tell you what you need. This is a very different workforce. They're governed by wage and hour law. They're not salaried employees. They're typically hourly. But what has happened since then? So Workrede in general is a company that has been in bauxite mines in Africa, managing transportation between bauxite miners. We've been in Santiago, Chile with copper miners. We are managing 30,000 employees across Hard Rock hotels and casinos in 18 different locations for Hard Rock that's owned by the Seminole Gaming Tribe in Indiana. If you know Trilogy Health Services, a local company with 18,000 employees managing long-term care communities, 130 of them across 5 states, all 18,000 employees use Workrede every day to connect with their employers. We're also in Sparks, Nevada with Panasonic Energy North America. This is a Tesla plant, one of the largest under-roof factories on the planet before Blue Oval. Any Blue Oval people here? Shout out. I need a contact. But we are growing with Panasonic Energy North America. And so we have pioneered this idea of connection between employers and employees that's meaningful.
All right.
That was good.
Yeah,
That
well,
was
thanks.
good.
Oh, okay.
I learned some things.
That's right. Good, good.
All right. Well, we made it.
Where's my squirrel? Oh.
And that is my morning alarm, just in case you all
Are you just
need
time
one.
to get up?
That's a little like, yeah.
PTSD?
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about the ecosystem, Ben. Can you talk to us more about the broader workforce and any trends you might be seeing?
Yeah, so I've been Reno-Weber, grew up in Louisville, also started a company not nearly as successful as ReadyApp, but in the very early days, the company that we ran was called MobileServe, and we were trying to engage volunteers. Don, you remember? Man, back over the pharmacy and Scarlett's Bakery in Shelby Park. And we wanted Workrede to buy us because we also understood that there was this interesting component that was happening where the rise of mobile for our clients were students. We could see that whoever was going to win this game of whatever you were trying to get done was going to win it on mobile. I think the really interesting part that has shifted as the world has caught up to some of this thinking is the workforce that we had. The idea that, if someone doesn't work out, you just find another person, right? Particularly when you're talking about the essential workers, the people working with their hands or in hospitality or service, care of others, tools, machines. Like those, they're just interchangeable. It's just a widget, right? Like, oh, that person left, I gotta get another one. Yeah, that ain't true anymore. And here's the thing we haven't yet wrapped our heads around from an ecosystem perspective. It's not gonna get true again, right? Everyone is talking about how people won't work. That's actually not the real thing, although it is an issue in Kentucky. There are a lot of barriers to getting people to jobs, but we are never gonna be able to treat workers, or at least for a couple of generations, the way that we did previously. So the employers that are going to be successful in this are going to be the employers that understand how to engage those workers, how to find them, how to support them in getting to your job site or your job site, because most of these workers need a job site, and then how to support not just them, but the ecosystem that enables them to work. Right? And so that's part of what I think is really interesting and exciting. I think the opportunity for those of us in tech right now is to do the reverse of what we did previously. Previously, we spent all this time and energy serving tech workers, right? How many of you guys use Slack? Right, okay, almost everybody uses Slack. Slack is essentially an over-engineering of AOL Instant Messenger from 2003. Right? It is a multi-unicorn company serving this particular niche.
Designed for desk workers.
Designed for desk workers and designed for really for engineers, people who are super comfortable in this space. Until very recently, most restaurants, and I think still is the case, don't have a technology for changing shifts. I am a waiter or waitress at most of the coffee shops in Louisville, Kentucky, and I change shifts by text message or WhatsApp because no one has invested in those innovations. So my interesting call is, how do we innovate around that workforce?
Fire.
When they asked me this morning as to be part of my job, I was like, are we serious? Yep, we are. Okay. So,
It is so much fun, isn't it?
Okay, so Jonathan, question for you. You started Workrede, formerly known as ReadyApp, in 2011. What has changed since the early days, and what metrics are you measuring things by these days?
Great question. So I talked a little bit about how the penetration of mobile devices is ubiquitous now. We all use them, but the behaviors, and sometimes I have 3 sons, so this is how I talk to my sons. Hey, what'd you guys do today? And they obviously return while they're looking at their devices. So not super powerful or positive in terms of personal interaction, but I think what has changed is that not only is it a ubiquitous tool, but it is the conduit to almost, if you are one of the workers that we described, it is their lifeline and connection to the world. Their communities and their ecosystems are far larger. Their access to tools and services is far greater than anything that I ever had access to. And after the shift of kind of post-World War II, where we had to work and jobs were built based on pride and providing for family, and then something happened where we have still been treating these workers and there were shortages. And we couldn't treat people the same way because they would just leave. And so there's a different kind of equality that's happening, social equality, because what, like I mentioned earlier, it's not a tech problem. This is a socioeconomic problem. And so what I think tech is the great equalizer. And so now that my children are smarter than me on mobile devices and in technology because they're all digital natives, if they go into a job and there is no connection to their manager, or there is no connection to the training mechanisms, there's no connection to the scheduling mechanisms, there's no connections on how to get rewarded or recognized, or to talk to peers on getting support for their own job, or transportation, then they feel disconnected. And when you feel disconnected, it's only those employers that see that there's something missing, because they need to be connected and engaged. So what engagement does for an employee who works at a Heine Brothers, customer of Workrede's, or works at Trilogy, or works at Home of the Innocents here, it's a Workrede customer, or Home of Family Scholar House, which is a Workrede customer, is to feel connected and be engaged. And when you are engaged and you feel like your company has provided you something to support you, you then participate. So it's this equal footing that we must be on when we talk about hiring other people. And what we know, which we have proven over the last decade or dozen years, is that engagement to participation results in performance and business outcomes. And people are shortchanging the opportunity around this workforce, which again is the largest on the planet. And we have served the desk worker for so long, we have out-teched them. And so what is changing are all these silos of software. Workrede is the highway. There was never a highway. There was never a Slack or a Teams or email for this worker. And now there is a highway to provide all of the services they need through Workrede.
You didn't shoot him!
I'm looking for an opportunity.
Come on!
Kim, give it 5 seconds.
Could have shot him.
Okay. Are you good?
I'm good, yeah.
Okay.
No, I have no squirrels.
Okay. All right, Ben, let's talk about workforce engagement. From your perspective, what's different in that space?
So I think Jonathan hit on some of the really important parts in terms of engaging with the worker directly from the employer. And one of the things from my previous life was people need to feel a sense of purpose in their job. Now, whether that is my job is doing something that is in and of itself meaningful, or how many of you all are with an organization that has some kind of paid volunteer time or organizes community engagement work, right? That idea, okay, how many? Okay, like 40%. The overall rate is actually pretty high, particularly for mid-sized and
your
larger
math.
organizations. Not here. And I think that a sense of purpose is really important. I think the corollary that is happening right now, or addition, is recognizing that all of these employees operate in an ecosystem. And so when we started talking about this, you were talking about like part of what we are trying to do is then how do we engage that ecosystem? Particularly for these essential workers for whom, you know, the vast majority of whom do not have $400 of savings, which means that when something goes wrong in that ecosystem, they do not have a buffer that supports them in getting to that job. So you can make it juggle for a little bit, right? I can put off buying my drugs in order to pay my rent, or maybe I can get that tire, but that's gonna mean I don't buy my kids clothes. Like you can do it a little bit. But again, the employers that are gonna win are the ones that understand, oh, okay, you operate in this broader space, and because I need you to operate, or because I care about you, or because I need you to operate and so I pretend like I care about you, like that's gonna be the future of who wins this workforce. Who's able to say, oh, you can't get to work? Can we create a space where for the first 3 months that you are coming to our operation, we find somebody who lives near you, we pay them $5 a day and they take you to and from work. When you talk to some of our largest employers here, what they say is day one, they have a no-show rate of 30%. Because people thought they could arrange their lives to make it to that shift time, and it turns out they couldn't, and then they're embarrassed by it. Okay, great. That means that if we're going to win that workforce, we have to be ready to deal with that. Oh, you have an emergency childcare issue. Okay, great. Let's think about what that looks like for a couple of days, right? Desk workers, I stay home and I Zoom that day, and I might not be my most productive day, but like it's fine, right? You can't do that if your job is to be slinging drinks. Okay. So I think that's the biggest thing that I see.
Were you anticipating or you forgot the question?
You guys,
I had 4 seconds to go. I didn't want to get shot.
you guys are all gonna have PTSD for my wake up morning. This is what I'm feeling. Okay, so we kind of set the table here for an interesting conversation, and we wanted to check in. Are there any thoughts or comments or questions from you guys that you might have for these two?
One thing I'm hearing is maybe a theme is that there might be a bit of a reframe. I'm happy to stay with you.
Yeah, just for the TV. Maybe
One
not.
thing I'm hearing is that there might be a bit of a reframe of what constitutes value in this future workforce that is today, and as well as how that value is exchanged in terms of, will you cover my shift? I need childcare coverage. I got to be flexible today. And one thing I was wondering is, kind of a two-part question. Do you all foresee kind of a shift toward more gig work, and meaning like the
Contractor.
yeah, more contractor, flexible workforce, that kind of thing? And how will Workrede, how would you respond to that? How do you want to, as a business, as a solution?
Sure. Well, it's a great segue, I think, to kind of the second part of our discussion. Let me grab that for you. And I think it is it's super important to think, because probably about 5 years ago, the gig worker was like all the talk, right? Mm-hmm. And now gig workers have these big arguments with Uber, like, are they really employees? Or are they contract workers? And there's lots of contract portals for contract workers all over the place that help subsidize employment and workforce in industries that need it, that are desperate for it. And it just depends on kind of what that niche work it is. Like when you think about slinging a hammer or being on a, like Louisville Paving here locally is a Workrede customer. Gig workers can't take some of these craft work jobs, like you can't just sub in somebody, right? But if you have a skill, usually desk workers are more gig oriented. So I don't think there's a massive impact for the gig workforce. However, I will mention this. As we have thought about how we have created engagement and participation in all these companies and really throughout the world and many of our largest customers, we believe now we need to go beyond the walls of just the employee. We need to go to volunteers and contractors and family members and ecosystems. So we're coming out with a, not to be a commercial, but we are coming out with a product called Workrede Communities in a couple months that actually allows companies to set up an area where they can bring in gig workers and have them participate and connected to the right individuals of their company to support them participating on a short-term basis or a contract basis or a project basis. But there was never that, even in temp work, if you look at the nation's largest temporary companies, when they go to that employer, they don't get an email address from that employer, they just kind of serve a function. And so they're disconnected, they're floating, these gig workers are floating out there, but yet work communities and ecosystems will allow them to actually participate in the outcome of the business. So I think they live together, but separately still, a little bit like an employee versus a gig or a contract or volunteer. But communities is going to be all-encompassing where you can support that work effort now and we kind of see that. I see that as the future. I still don't believe that there are a lot of companies that truly that can make this paradigm shift of everything that you needed or I need that sit at desks with a screen all day and how we navigate different systems to moving to this size of a screen. What do I really need? What can I do? How many apps can I download to get access to learning management and training and schedules and HR, et cetera? So I do believe there will continue to be a shift. It's probably going to have the pain of the shift still is yet to come. Like we were very early. We've been studying that this workforce for a long time. So, but we're seeing signs that people are.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! I didn't hear that.
Wow! In the head! In the head!
Headshot!
Wow! Deadly! Deadly!
Hold on. Let Erica go.
Where's the? Give me the phone. Hold on, we gotta take a picture of this. This is amazing.
I've literally never even owned one of
Oh,
those.
oh my God, that's amazing. Right there. It's like, you put your head on a mantle.
I knew this was a bad idea.
What?
It's in my ear.
That is
I can't hear.
amazing. That's going on Ready Central later. So can I add one piece to this? You
have a squirrel.
I do. I have a squirrel. So we'll do 1 minute. Okay, here's 1 minute for the squirrel. So I think when the Secretary for Economic Development for the state of Kentucky talks about Blue Oval, and he says, oh boy, we have 4 years while they build this monster for us to get 5,000 workers ready to go. And he says we need K-12 folks to be skilled and interested in this kind of work. We need community colleges. We need university dropouts, which I thought was interesting. We need immigrants. And we need underemployed workers. And the final one is we need people for whom the current barriers to getting into the workforce are too much. And this is the spot where I think the communities piece gets really interesting because there is a set of people who are like, listen, my childcare is such I can only work Mondays and Fridays. Or I would love to be able to say these are the 4 shifts that I have availability where my mom can watch my kid. Can I go work security at the Lou City game? Right? So there is some piece of I can get the training ahead of time. I can say, oh, this person is trained for Lou City security work. Great. And is available on these 3 shifts, and we can reach out to them when we need just those 3 shifts. And again, I think that's meeting people where they are with a technology that they can be familiar with. And then, oh man, that's also someone who can do the Yum Center or whatever, but only on the shifts that they set.
Yeah. And in the Workrede platform, you're able to have multiple networks. So you can be an employee at Heine Brothers and also be an employee at Trilogy and see them separately inside of Workrede. All separate, all secure, all compliant, all private.
You got the end of my 1 minute. I know.
I'm so sorry. Okay. How are we doing on time, Donna? Are we good?
2 minute wrap up.
2 minute wrap up. Okay.
I have what I think is a quick question and may lead to further discussion.
Not for us.
Sorry. No, wait. Alethea Bernard, I'm with Kentucky State University. So when we're talking about, and it was kind of alluded to a little bit about engagement. So one of the big keys is feeling engaged. And so in particular, when we're looking at Generation Z, which are mainly like your 2000ers, they're starting to really be in the workforce. and then Generation Alpha, which is, they're really the middle schoolers, and so a lot of times we forget about them. So when we're talking about work ready and engagement, those are two that were definitely affected by COVID. And so engagement means completely different for them. So when we're talking about the tech data native, because their whole world was just that. And they're still just now starting to come through that. So when we're talking about, I think when we're talking about workforce development and such, we're not just talking about folks who are already in, but then as we were talking about Blue Oval, we're talking about a lot of these, the jobs are, especially being in a room full of tech folks, we know what we're doing now, in another month, another year, and definitely 10 years, we don't even know what that looks like. So how do both of you, as you're working together, look at and take the foresight of what do we do with these generations that are coming in, and how do we address what engagement needs?
Can I do the first bit, and then can you talk about the ERG stuff that's we're hearing, like, that is so interesting about what people are doing with your platform?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quick story. I was sitting in Cane's Chicken a couple days ago with one of the women that works with me who's much younger, and I looked over and I was like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "I'm ordering our food." And I said, "No, we're in the restaurant." And she's like, "Yeah, but then we'd have to go talk to a person." And she was literally online ordering from a booth in Cane's. And I think to your point, like, there is that universe where people will prefer to have their interaction with their manager on this platform rather than doing it in person. So we do have to do a little bit of meeting people where they are there. But then the other thing that we're seeing is that people want to see their peers. They want to have interactions with the people who have similar lived experiences to them. And so when we were on a call with Trilogy last week, part of what they were talking about is like, oh, we're excited about this because this is how our employee resource groups, our affinity groups, can meet and talk. I mean, can you just...
Yeah, or specifically around diversity, equity, inclusion, and balance within their organizations. And so I think that what we are seeing is like the Panasonic Energy North America factory in the Tesla factory in Sparks, Nevada, uses a lot of Japanese workforce and expats coming over to actually supplement plants there. And so they were all talking to each other in their native language, in Japanese, on their device keyboards, but they were also using a social media product to communicate. That was, it's called Line. It's a Japanese social media product. And Tesla and Panasonic were like, whoa, we can't do that here. So, at Workrede, we tried to accommodate. So we built this idea of self-curated teams for all of the Japanese native-speaking people so that they could create teams around the jobs and their work to support their efforts.
In Japanese.
In Japanese, which is terrific. And then as we look at Trilogy, who's building communities around people that are around humans, or around my sons who are Gen Z, they already, to your point, are digital natives. So the idea is that they're coming in with stronger connections to technology than many of the people they're going to work for, and making the change is critical. And it's leadership, and it's a little gun shy, and it's management, but it's changing. I mean, if you think about the companies here in Louisville, Kentucky, Yum Brands, Ford Motor Company, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, there's still this thing that hangs over, which is we don't want to give them this connection. My God, what will they do with it?
Yeah.
What if they're able to talk to their peers? And we've got to change that. And we've got to show that pride in job, and participation, and engagement leads to these better outcomes if you're working together. And that's what we're all about.
Boom.
Yeah.
That's it. We're
hey,
done.
Ben, that's awesome.
We dropped the mic.
Yeah, all right. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.